In this B2 First writing video, we're going to take a look at a completed report. So let's just look again at exactly what a report is. We can see our example question here and a definition of a report. And a report evaluates or analyzes the present situation and usually makes some kind of recommendations about it. It is divided into sections and we usually include factual information. And just a quick summary of how we write a report. The style is formal, the language is formal. We use headers or titles for each section or paragraph. We generally use less direct language when we're talking about recommendations, so we would use words like should and could. So let's take a look at our question, and we can see here the report is about a group of students who will be visiting next month. So let's just take a look at the key points here. The college has asked you or a person to suggest different things that they can do. You also need to include information about shopping and places to eat. Now, one thing about a report is that it needs a title, but this title can be quite simple, and here's an example of that, and this is perfectly fine. You're explaining exactly what the report is and an appropriate title for this particular report. The language is perfectly fine. We don't need any more information than this. So if somebody sees the report, they understand that this is what they're going to read about. Now, let's talk about the titles or the sections and how we organize our report. So the first section or paragraph is the introduction. The next section or paragraph is going to talk about things to see and do, and this will include shopping. The next paragraph will only talk about restaurant, and then finally the last paragraph or section will talk about recommendations. So let's take a look at the introduction. The introduction doesn't need to be very long. What is important, as it is with all of the sections in this report, is that you need to include a title. And this is an example of an introduction paragraph, and you can use this type of paragraph for almost any report. It doesn't have to be very long. It explains the reason for the report, which is most important, and it doesn't include a lot of details because these details will come later in the report. And of course, the language used here is very formal, which is correct for this type of writing. And before we move on to the other sections, there's another way we can write report. Instead of using the word aim, we can use the word purpose. And these paragraphs are almost the same, but we can choose to use the word aim or purpose. Now let's move on to our first section or paragraph. And in this part, we're going to talk about things to see and do. And we can see in this example here, what's most important, that the person has presented a number of places to visit. And this was part of the question. So there are examples here of a tourist visit to the King's Castle. There's also information about shopping. The person has included the shopping here. Perhaps maybe the two activities could go together in some way. The person writing also gives opinions about these different activities, like for example the castle tour is only 1 hour, so it could be a good idea. They also talk about the historical importance of the market and the selection of food and crafts. And once again, the language here is formal and appropriate. The next section then will talk about restaurants or places to eat. And once again, we've included our header, which is restaurants. And here in this paragraph, like the previous paragraph, the person has suggested a number of different places. There is a restaurant called Mardrake's, and there's also an Italian restaurant. The writer gives details about the type of food you can find in each one of these. The first restaurant has vegetarian options, and the second restaurant, people can watch the pizzas being made. And once again, the language is formal here and it's quite appropriate. So now to finish, you need to make some recommendations. The writer here has given the opinion that the group don't have very much time, but it's still possible for them to do a number of things. And again, a recommendations title. And the writer proposes a plan, which is a guided tour followed by a meal in this restaurant, and perhaps for people who want it, to go on a shopping trip. Maybe not everybody will want to do it, and in their opinion, this is the perfect way to end the day. And once again, the style is formal, it's absolutely appropriate, and this is a good way to end the report.